Bernie wins Indiana. It makes a contested convention that much more likely. I'll explain why. First, let's look at yesterday's results from the Indiana primary. Bernie Sanders, 52.5%. That nets him 43 delegates. Hillary Clinton, 47.5% of the vote. That nets her 37 delegates. Net impact, Lewis, of this win for Bernie Sanders is +6 in terms of delegates. So a win for Bernie. You never want to understate the importance of winning primaries. It is sort of a prerequisite to being the nominee. But in terms of the delegate math, only shifting the balance by 6. And that, I think, coming as a disappointment to many Bernie supporters.
Yeah, but still, it makes the contested convention more likely. I mean, Bernie is, I know he was so certain of that, as we discussed yesterday.
Well, I'm increasingly certain, too.
Are you?
Yeah, let's look at the delegate math. I mentioned the gap was closed by 6. And here's where things stand in terms of clinching. Now, that's a nice-looking table, Lewis. I have to say, these tables have improved drastically over the last few weeks. Let me present the data to you of the delegates. Now, we'll go through without superdelegates and with superdelegates. The superdelegates don't vote until the convention. So this scenario I'm showing to our TV audience is the possibility of clinching before the convention. Clinton, 1,700 delegates, needs 683. That is 61% of the remaining pledged delegates. That's not very likely. It's not likely that Hillary will secure 61% of the remaining pledged delegates before the convention. Bernie Sanders needs 973. That is nearly 90% of the remaining pledged delegates. So what I can say, Lewis, with some certitude, is that Bernie Sanders is definitely not going to clinch this nomination before the convention. And Hillary Clinton is very unlikely to clinch this thing before the convention. Am I misunderstanding what seems to be relatively simple math?
I think you have a firm grasp on it, but that means that this will be in the hands of the superdelegates because they can still decide.
They can. And let's now consider superdelegates, which makes no sense in terms of clinching pre-convention, but okay, at least it'll give us a sense of the picture once we get to the convention. Again, Hillary Clinton needs 683. Once you consider the superdelegates, that's 37% of remaining available pledged and superdelegates. Bernie Sanders needing 973 puts him at 53.3% required of the remaining pledged and superdelegates. How would you handicap, Lewis, the probability of this going to a contested convention for the Democrats unless Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton were to drop out before then, which would change the scenario?
You're asking me, I'm going to put a percent chance on this?
Yeah. Do you think it's 50-50 that this ends up unresolved before the convention? You think it's 100% chance? How would you handicap it?
I would go, I'd say about 70% chance this will end with a contested convention.
I'm going 85%.
Okay.
Even as high as 86.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bold.
The math suggests that, and I tend to stick with the math in most of these cases. And what's interesting is we've seen so much critique from the Bernie Sanders campaign of the entire superdelegate system. But now that this is looking more and more like there will be a contested convention, you hear more and more talk from the Bernie Sanders campaign of how to play the superdelegate game, wooing superdelegates, the negotiations, etc. I don't criticize Bernie Sanders for that. You can still use the system that's in place, even if you're critical of the system. This is like saying, hey, anyone who criticizes how campaign finance is set up shouldn't raise money because they're against it. Well, hold on a second. That's not a fair critique. In order to get in power in the first place, they're going to have to use the system that's available. I think that's an unfair criticism of the Sanders campaign. Hey, you criticize superdelegates and now you're trying to use them to win. What kind of a criticism is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, is it using the system available to you, or is it that you are at the mercy of that system?
Well, fair enough.
I mean, I think that's more like it. But you know what you're getting into if you run as a Democrat or a Republican.
Yes, you do.
You are at the mercy of that organization.